living hell.
The pain of losing his daughter Tori was unmistakable, and Rodney Stafford wanted Tori's killers to pay.
I just want anybody responsible for what has happened to make sure they get their dues.
So when he found out one of the people convicted of his daughter's murder was transferred from prison to a healing lodge, Stafford didn't hold back.
There's no deterrent to stop them from doing it. Like, you can murder somebody and end up in a healing lodge.
But CBC News has learned Terri-Lynne McClintic's transfer isn't an isolated event, far from it. She's one of 22 people convicted of the first or second degree murder of a child under 18 who have been transferred to a healing lodge. And not just under this Liberal government, at least 10 transfers happened under the previous Harper Conservatives, too.
They had 10 years to fix it, and they didn't.
Which ones?
I don't have the names, but
but to say that you do need some evidence,
yeah,
right?
Like, yeah. But again, there were those kind of transfers that did take place.
The new numbers come after 6 weeks of intense political back and forth over McClintic's transfer.
A party of ambulance-chasing politicians.
At least the Prime Minister can show some kind of emotion, even though it's self-righteous.
Conservatives criticized the government for allowing McClintic's transfer and not reversing it fast enough. But on the only now just revealed fact their party also oversaw transfers when in government, a spokesperson said the details of those cases are unknown and insisted our Conservative government acted swiftly whenever these types of bad decisions in the criminal justice system became known, as when we ended old age security benefits for Clifford Olson.
So, Vashi, what do we know about the 22 people that have been moved from traditional prisons to these healing lodges?
Hi, Andrew. Well, I'll start with what we know, but I'll preface that by saying there's a lot more that we don't know. On what we do know is that this group of people, they have all committed a murder of a child. The group is comprised of men and women. There, according to Public Safety Canada, are 2 healing lodges for women in the country, 7 for men. What we don't know is the particular circumstances of any of these cases. For example, the crimes they committed, the sentences they're serving. All that information is kept private, and only the victims' families are privy to it.
But, I mean, all the public and political blowback that we've seen, it's forced the government to review the entire process, right?
Yeah, at first the Liberals said we can't do anything about Terri-Lynne McClintic's specific case. So instead they're reviewing, or they did review, the entire system. And last week they came out with new, tighter rules that essentially prompted Terri-Lynne McClintic to be transferred back to prison away from the healing lodge. And I know you'll be talking about this as well, but the government does stress that these healing lodges have a record of successfully dealing with difficult cases and can be the right approach for certain offenders, depending, though, on the case. Andrew?
Okay. Vashi Kapellos, host of CBC's Power and Politics. Thanks, Vashi.
You're welcome.
And yeah, Vashi's right. There can be advantages to the healing lodge approach. There are also those who disagree, people who see them as amounting to a free pass for convicted murderers, as we saw. But let's talk about what actually goes on inside a healing lodge and who qualifies for a transfer. Indigenous healing lodges are intended to address the high rate of Indigenous people behind bars and concerns that traditional prison programs don't work well for them. First created in the 90s, there are now 9 such healing lodges across the country, most in the prairies. Corrections Canada says services and programs for offenders use a holistic and spiritual approach, incorporating Indigenous values, traditions, and beliefs. Elders play a critical role in these spiritual lodges, holding ceremonies and teaching. Offenders learn Indigenous languages and are taught how to live independently for when they get out. And these minimum and medium security facilities aren't limited to Indigenous inmates either. Others are free to apply if they accept the Indigenous programming and spirituality. Corrections Canada says before moving an offender to a healing lodge, it does weigh the risk to public safety. Last year, the Auditor General found that healing lodges are at almost full capacity, and there aren't enough of them across the country. Building new ones was also a recommendation coming out of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But since those reports were released, no new lodges have been built.